Back with another video. This one is one long since promised. This is gonna be kind of an explainer jump off, so man, it's gonna kill the retention, but this leader is so way back, it needs to be explained. So bear with me on that one. And like, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. But explaining this one, this an old leader for I want to say 2019, 2020. This one redefined how we see the game because it kind of broke the rules on how you're supposed to play it. This is a deck that primarily functions on being handless to start its combos, and it has a very easy turn 1 turn 2 awaken. I think around here is where they were being unique with their awakenings before it was common practice with almost every deck in the last 7 or 8 sets. But this set came out around Universal Onslaught set 9 a long time ago. This function is pretty much going up a boot chain and pressuring your opponent. I say your first 2 or 3 turns is really aggressive before you mellow out and just controlling the game. It has a lot of unique effects in this deck that we'll get into as I explain that chain. Its backside is pretty unique as well because it can have a good matchup against decks like Pen that's a bunch of 3 or less, because this can just eat up all their cards. Also, this has another effect that can make it power increase by the active main, which is not a once per turn. And I'll give my overall thoughts and probably some needed improvements, but I would say this deck, I would say I built it as a primer to build on top of once you got the hang of this deck. This deck is very sequence heavy, so we'll get into it with that. Starting off with the first couple of cards, these are the main cards of the deck that really start you off. Let me just the creator view. These 4 cards right here. This usually my turn 1 play where I'm going up the chain, and this helps me search out my other blue pieces. You once you're handless, because usually what you want to do is just combo out your hand. That's why we made this deck very combo efficient, like on your first or second swing, because once you have 0 cards in your hand, you flip over, draw 2. Due to my awakening ability, which I mentioned, or you draw 3 and you add 2 cards from your life to your hand, so you go back up to 5 on your hand size. Also, at the end of the turn, if you didn't read, if you have 0 cards in hand, you draw back up to 5. So you constantly seeing 5 cards every turn as long as you go handless by the end of your turn after you awaken. That's kind of the premise, because like starting off, the main piece of this chain is this boo. Alongside my energies in black and I have no cards in hand, I get to choose up to 1 black blue with energy cost 3 or 4 in my drop area and play it. And if I have 3 more energy for its other effect, I can go up into my 3 and 6 drops. This can go straight into my 6 drop after turn 3, but normally this usually go into the 4, which the 4 is why I said one of the 4 most important cards, because it can help you go into your 6 drop right away without being at a certain energy requirement. Also, it's a dual attack, and you're pretty much stacking cards on top of this. The other effects like the bigger ones that you can go to into from the 4-drop. This is just double strike pretty much, and has the pretty much the same effects to go into the another 5 or 6-drop. So you keep placing on the stack of on top of your boo. But the main guy that we want to get out as soon as possible to kind of slow the progression of our opponent is this boo right here, which is quintessential to stopping their pluses. If they're not plussing off the leader, this stops everything else. Also, late game, it has the ability to get a triple strike, but the main effect is not allowing them to add cards to their hand by their non-leader effects. So it stops search effects, super combos, you name it. If they add in cards to their hand outside of their leader effect and the normal drawing, due to the usual steps in game mechanics during the charge phase. But this is something you want to keep on the field. Also, always swing with it so you can turn on that effect, as well as this is very hard to remove, because like this can't be removed by opponent's skills, so it's kind of better than barrier. Red might give it a little bit of trouble, but you have things for red that'll help you get through that matchup. But all in all, this is like the bread and butter you want to get to that will slow your opponent down and make them adjust to your pace, which is really fast in the beginning. This boo is kind of like a preemptive type of tactic for the matchup. This kind of like sacks itself off to kind of get rid of a card that they might cheat out early, which is really good. And it also has that protecting effect that this can't be removed by your opponent's skills. Negging still kind of hurts because it's still a die by game mechanic, but besides that, for the 4 and soon to be 6 other colors, this is probably gonna stick. And then going to my other boo cards, this is for the draws and just to modulate my hand at the end of my turn. This, when I'm doing my handless combo, this helps another one of my boos get another swing. Also, some support cards, which the rest of the deck from this point forward is kind of supporting this and making it more fluid. This one being my hatch, which usually you see this in AOD and a few other decks, or Agents of Destruction if you don't know what AOD is. This helps me makes my turn 2 play more consistent, in which I get out this Bobbity, which gives me access to my 2-drop boo to go up the chain. So in actuality, we have like 8 ways of playing Bobbity. Going on to my next card, it's kind of like a tech and helps build up Z energy throughout the later parts of the game and removal. And it's not really color locked to blue, which is really good. Being able to combo off stuff off the board or get rid of stuff out they drop. Next, the usual combo for barrier removal. This is kind of floating into our mid game and our super combo of choice, since this is a very combo heavy deck, so we always comboing, so we should usually have enough to have this turned on and live by turn 2 easily. sometimes turn 1. Then we have full, this is just a new edition because it had to do this deck profile over, even though I had this ready to go with the Beyond All Limits banning, because like I had some other synergies and I needed a replacement card for that, and this kind of was like that replacement card that also synergizes with the deck and just makes itself another copy of like every battle card in this deck, and also easy to combo. Quotes, staple for black decks, and every color has this in their side deck, but this is a deck that can main it pretty proficiently and helps us filter our hands, because sometimes we have cards in our hand that we don't want, that we want in the back of our deck just so we can stay handless, because there are some cards in this deck that we're running that we can't combo, so this helps in that respect, as well as locking our opponent from, or punishing our opponent for playing on our turn. Next, a lot of people is using big body overwhelms, but I chose this one in particular because this is a combo deck, and when you're playing a combo deck, you want to choose things that give your deck synergy, and it allows me to pick up any missing piece that I don't have in my hand to keep playing the game. Not only that, it picks up a few other things we will see later that I'll explain later. Dark Broly, like I said before, this can win the game pretty early, or it can grind out to late games, and being able to modulate this and be able to play itself from the warp is pretty good, and can also be a good closer. Oh yeah, the only thing people probably downplay on this is like the fact does it have 0 combo power, but that doesn't matter. I can discard it with my leader and just give my leader +5. So it has its uses. Since my whole deck is predicated on being in the low hand size, Kai is pretty valuable in this deck since it gains extra 5 when my hand is low. Our secret of choice is the Apex. You can float Cumber, the blue Majin Buu SCR, which I've seen in a few other lists, which there's some dope interactions with that. You can run Pin Secret. I've seen people running Kai, but for this, this, in my opinion, fits the mold of how this deck wants to play, and this being able to fuel your hand up even after you went down can be a blowout at times, but definitely this will allow you to combo high. But also, not only that, it's a board weight, or a pseudo board weight, because it can warp up to 7 cards on your opponents. I say Sparking 7 might be difficult for some decks, but in a deck like this where we're comboing it more often than not, over comboing just to get off into our backside, that should be no problem. I say you gotta wait till turn 3 to really maximize this, but it's definitely going second on your turn 3 and you have an energy marker. It sets the floor for a lot of combo-licious plays. Then we have our defense against mostly that red SCR. Make sure we get to this before they hit their 4th turn, so we can just have a comfortable negate. But I say think 2 is the right number. was thinking about playing more, but I think for this deck and how I have it built currently, I think the ratios is just about on point for where it needs to be. Then we have 2 petrifications. This is a staple black card that generally, if I don't need it for the matchup, I just charge it, because these are, like I mentioned before, are only few non-combo bull cards. Especially the turn I'm going to win. But if I'm counter planning that they making a big turn, I usually leave energy open and make sure I have this in my hand or draw into this. So I say there's only like 1 or 2 important times that you'll probably want to use or see this out of the game. And that's why we have it at that number. But even a more important card, Super Kamehameha, because when you're going off, we don't want to have a lot of interruptions, and this can stop the interruptions quite effectively. But also, you can take life to play this for free when you're at 4-less, that's not hard to get to. And for tech, I was thinking about running the token negates in here and some power bursts, maybe some power bursts to float in, but this is just like a backup way to get to your boo chain. Because all in all, with this pre-side state of the game, they might find some ways, or the seasoned player might find some ways to get around the boo, and you might have to remake the chain like 3 or 4 times throughout the game. This is like another easier way mid to late game to like have a way or have access to the chain, or even set up 2 chains. Going on to the V deck, we got Boo, generally standard. I'm running 2 of this because I like the fact that he's blocker, and making him, and depending on matchup or a deck that's just as fast as yours in the beginning, I tend to be more defensive, and having access to blockers whenever I need to is pretty good value. That's why I ran it a 2-1 split from this, just to pivot. Also, to make room for our other new Z cards that came out of set 27 at the time of this video. This is just standard Mighty Blast, just to modulate cards back to the drop, or combo pieces that I want to go back into the drop after our overrun. 2 of these. This is like a new Z extra card for black, which is really defines on how I built this deck, as making a statement that our Z deck is our extra hand, even though our hand size is low, but we pretty much pressure enough to make their hand size low defending. And with cards like that in this, it really pushes that narrative. But also, with this card in specifically, this is the deck's way of getting rid of barrier cards. And that's usually the bane of most black players' existence if they don't see their cumbers, which is not searchable. Having a turn 2 barrier removal is very important, especially going into the SS4 Vegito matchup, which is still going to be played even though it lost one of its key pieces. Fighting a double strike barrier hitting, or that just hit you for half your life turn 2, this is just like a good easy instant response for that, as well as being possibly mid to late game pressure that gets stronger depending on your unison. Then we have if our hand or in drop is really crazy, we have the setup to throw out a lot of aggro attacks. This unison enables that, as well as being a unison that's cheap and that can swing. Key thing, cheap and can swing, because we have a lot of cards that can be utilized as 10k. And for our last card, since the nature of our decks have us comboing a lot, I thought this would be like the perfect one. And as well as in tandem with that Dark Broly, that where I can get value and draw a card and get removal. I always like to sneak this into my black decks whenever I can. Not a lot of people using this, but I still like the card and like to diversify my portfolio. They gave me 3 extra Z slots. I'm going to use them. And for the side deck, going from my previous list in the past that I've played over the several years, doesn't look too different. We got the hammer, just to be able to touch a wider range of cards, especially if I'm playing against blue and they ready to rumbles. We just have to say, nah, not this time. Then we got Tenacious against the more aggressive decks. Black Mass Sand, the Forgotten Trooper in most people's side decks. This comes up more than you think. A lot of matchups. And for those matchups that rely on a drop, I get to remove cards from your drop, which is important, as well as being pressured offensively and defensively with that 1 energy plus 15k. And that comes important when your hand size is low. Then we have this card. Not a lot of people running this card, and I was considering side decking the attacking the weak point, but I didn't want this to be like the usual black deck where I'm just throwing that promo SS4 and Vegeta and like the 6 drop Vegeta in every black deck I play. But I like this a bit more for versatility, just to stun secret rares, boss monsters, and as well as to turn off certain floodgatey or gatekeepy effects on my turn, because I'll stick a point in it in just a second. After I reveal this card, the Pui, if I'm running a counterplay heavy deck, I am going to lean into this card more or bring it in. So like my turn 2 or turn 3 where I'm going off, I get to establish this, which has barrier. And once it hits the field, its permanent kicks in where my opponent can't activate counterplays. So as soon as it touch, it is over. Because they have to 1, know your deck, 2, blind window 1 it. Which is going to be a rarity. And why I went to that, the Deborah, is another reason. Usually you play for 2, but you can cheat it out on your turn when you want to turn off one of your opponent's battle cards effects. Because my Bobby not only searches or plays the Deborah from my drop or Majin Boos, it also plays Pui Pui as well. As you can read in the description right there, there's 4 cards it can play. And with the consistency of the hats that I'm playing, I don't play the Yakon. It's kind of outdated, but for this format, but those 3 cards I still keep around to play. And for our last card of our side deck is Protector of the People. Yes. 3 still a thing, and Pan and a few other black decks that go really wide. So I don't have the hand size to combo out of 10 swings, so might as well get stronger for those matchups while they swing. Usually like side and the matchups where they swinging line or their main focus is the swing line, I might just side out Petrification, because Petrification in a matchup where their deck is designed to swing wide at you, or in the sense of 6 to 10 swings turn 3 and later, this doesn't do enough. But that's the deck profile. Let me know what you think. I'll give you one last full view of it. This can be aggro, mid-range, whatever tempo you want to play it at. Also, I usually don't charge or keep charging every turn to infinity. I say about between 2 and 4 energy is the sweet spot. Also, against certain matchups like green and yellow that has a lot of cards predicated to you having 3 or more energy to play certain cards, you can just stop charging that 2 energy and just play on 2 energy for the rest of the game. For the most part, you don't need more than 2 energy to play your deck, which is a strategical advantage. But I say that is something to be practiced. It's just not something you can just know about it and do. But on that, I say have fun with this. This is, like I said before in the beginning, it's kind of like a primer that just gets you into the deck and how I would play it in this 2025 season. But this deck is still strong, and definitely was tough with the ratio choices, but I feel this is the right ratios overall if you want to play this deck. Definitely getting into this archetype. Definitely something to check out. I'll leave the number in the description. Is 2699999, so you can check it out. Also, I'll probably leave the video link if you just see this on Deck Planet, so you can circle back around. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all on the next video. We might have to spice it up with Jiren, just as foreshadowing.